obviously he's got a 90+ furnace in the attic. Let's go see.
So periodically, is that something that I can clean out?
It's pretty bad. All right. So looking at this float switch, I wonder if this pipe, not the float, is not restricted from coming down. Or going up. It's just the first thing I noticed. That pipe laying right on it. I think that's okay. So let's see what it breaks. All right, so the float switch is hooked to the common, which should cut the power off to the control. So that should cover the heating and the cooling mode. So the float switch is not incorrectly wired, but it is definitely not floating. You can see how much water is in it. You can see that this float is really not at all up. And it is sitting in the bottom of the pan. So this float should be up a good bit. It's not coming up any. See how much water is right there. So, on top of that, you need to know why it's getting in the pan. So it's not leaking outside of the pan.
So I did notice.
Do that.
I did notice some drips
For
here.
some reason,
Under, just on the bottom.
this is not mounted exactly right, but it should not. Yeah. Probably coming right out of that hose there. All right, so here's the problem. See that? Completely off
Oh, I see.
the nipple.
Yep.
You can see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it on the screen better than you can up in there. So that is completely off. So we have two problems here. One, that hose is unhooked. And two, the float switch is not floating. So let's get all this fixed.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so I got this float switch off. Everybody knows how these work. This floats up when it's in water. And it breaks the connection. So this thing is full of water, and you can see that float is not budging. So what is wrong with this thing? I don't know, but it certainly is not floating up it should look like that. It should float up. So when you stick it down in the water there, that thing should float up and cut this off. And I don't think that thing is hooked to anything. So the indicator being broke is one thing. Can't hear the float moving. Actually, I do. So I think just the indicator might be broken here, or, you know, broken loose from the float. Regardless, I don't think it is breaking the connection. So we're going to replace this and connect this hose back properly. See what we got. All right, so these are certainly not easy to get to. So I pull that hose off and take the pressure switch off from here, and you see how wide open that gets you. So then obviously my pliers would reach up in here easy and squeeze that. As you can see, we have it all the way up on the nipple now, and it's tight. It ain't gonna go nowhere, and it ain't gonna leak. So let's get all this put back together. We should be okay. All right, so I'm gonna go look for a float switch. Obviously that one's not floating up correctly. Now put all this back in, and you can't really reach back in there very well to get that clamp on, but you can see I got it on there now, all the way up, as well as that clamp up on it now, and I shorten that a little bit. So let's get the water out of the pan. Got our piece of tubing going over to the staircase. Let's go get it emptied. And of course today I'm short in tubing.
Wife is not happy.
Why? Filled one of them up. Now going into the fresh step. All right, got a new one. So I kind of wish we had not drained the pan before bringing it up here, just to compare that little ball there actually floats up when it hits water. But certainly hope don't have two bad ones here. Let's install this one and see what we get. All right, so we got the new float switch out here, away from being under that pipe, and hopefully it works. And I went ahead and broke red with it. I don't think that would make a difference, but I went ahead and did that. I did shorten the wire and tie a knot in it. And I pulled some of this thermostat wire up into the cabinet where it wouldn't lay in water again if it does fill up. So I looked around to see if I had some spare clamps. I would have added one to that and added one to that, but they're both tight and okay. That one is clamped well. The one inside the furnace is clamped well. So we should be okay. We're going to turn this thing back on and start it up, and I think I'll watch it a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and vacuum this from outside just to be sure that it's clear. I'm going to throw this switch away. So obviously the little float ball, the little indicator is not connected to the float. I may check this with a meter later and see, standing in water, if it actually breaks. I don't think it does, because it never turned them off. And it was breaking the common, which would turn the control off. So anyway, let's get this back closed up and get them some heat. All right. So I heard some clicks going on and things happening. So we should be ready to cut the heat back on now. Look at that. That's a little weird. I don't guess there's anything actually wrong with that. But definitely a little bit different. So let's go outside and vacuum the drain line out before we leave. Did you look in
over there too?
in the kitchen too?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything here. Nothing there.
Oh boy. I think this whole house.
It was leaking.
All right, so here's where they come out. I guess it was closer to come straight this way than to follow out to the outside unit. We got all that was in it out. The line was not the problem as we saw in the attic. All right, so as we can see, we had some multiple issues on that job. There was definitely a bad float switch. And there's no stop sign for that street, but the others had one, and I don't trust them to stop or not. So anyway, we definitely had a bad float switch, no doubt about that. But nonetheless, that was not the problem. That is the reason the water got on the ceiling and on one of the walls. But, oh Lord, did I turn down a cul-de-sac again? Tell you what, I had $1 for every time I did that. I could go eat a high dollar steak tonight. So anyway, the float switch is definitely the reason that it damaged the house, but it wasn't the problem. The problem was all of those hoses you saw with the crappy clamp job and whatever else. Now we do have a stop sign here, and I'm going to come to a complete stop before I go. Now, for my critics out there, I do appreciate you, and I do somewhat purposely put these videos up in order for you to criticize them. Now, when I do that, I've more got my heating and air conditioning techniques in mind than I do my driving. But it seems we get criticized about anything and everything on YouTube, so I have learned to adjust accordingly. Oh geez, this is one of those neighborhoods. A couple of you guys are laughing at me right now. I know Shannon is. This is the second cul-de-sac I came down. I came in here in the daylight, no problem with the GPS. Getting out of here seems to be another issue altogether. But I'm getting the opportunity to look at the beautiful Christmas displays. So, as I was saying, for those that are critical of my HVAC techniques and whatnot, I feel like that's a good thing, and that can be learning opportunities. So I encourage that. For those of you that want to criticize my driving, you know, on one hand, I want to say, yeah, you're right. I should come to a complete stop at every stop sign. And on the other hand, I would like to say, you know, get a life. But anyway, you never know who people are. Maybe they're police officers and they're watching these videos and they're saying you don't stop at stop signs. So, I'm going to start trying to come to a complete stop at stop signs, no matter who's around or coming or not, anytime I got the video camera running. At least I was honest and said anytime I got the video camera running. So, you know, my dad used to call it a rolling stop. And when I was a kid, I would say, Dad, you didn't stop at that stop sign. And he would say, well, I came to a rolling stop. And so anyway, for those that think that's funny, well, yeah, that's what my dad would say. And for those that don't, then I'm sorry. Like I said before, get a life. So we've got one more. Some older people with no heat. It's not very cold out tonight, but I want to go ahead and go to it.